Hello and welcome to the Brothers of Dynasty live podcast edition. I'm your host, Josh Christensen, joined as always by my two brothers, Jay and Andrew. Jay, what are you drinking tonight?
Tonight I'm drinking Sierra Nevada Celebration, copying Andrew from last week.
It's the same beer, actually. You just...
Yeah, we recycled the beer. He drank half and then mailed it to me. And now I'm drinking the other half.
It's very warm.
Yeah,
it's overnight delivery.
Still good though. The fresh hop taste is still intact.
Yeah, that's right. It really
still fresh.
Here they added more hops to the mix. Anyways, Andrew,
thanks, McLovin.
Punched in the face. Andrew, what are you drinking tonight?
I am drinking Maker's Mark. No beer this week.
All right,
back.
The fine, sweet.
Is this its
whiskey.
First appearance on the live pod or no? Have you had that? Maybe the first time? I can't remember anything, honestly.
Yeah,
we've just been in such a drunken stupor. Just don't even know. Don't even recall.
It is the holidays. Are you listening to Christmas music yet? Has that entered any of your
have
lives?
listened. I have some decorations up here. I have some lit. I've been starting to decorate the basement and the house. Yeah.
There you go. Soon it's going to be the Christmas lounge.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll have to do a tour. We'll do like a Cribs episode, and I'll walk around. And
we're not going to do that.
Just your setup, travel around the room. That's like the idea of
no, it doesn't. At all.
Just like this is not working. Jay decided halfway through this is a terrible mistake.
Yeah, my monitor fell off. My webcam just toppled over. It's over.
Oh my god. Well, we should get to football because we have a lot to get through tonight. But before we do, just want to mention that the Brothers of Dynasty are part of the Fantasy Football Collective network of podcasts. You can find the Fantasy Football Collective at FF_collective on Twitter. That's collective with a K. For other great content and podcasts like the Fantasy Nightcap, the Fantasy Boardroom, and Collective Knowledge. So today we are reacting to Week 10 in the NFL quickly, and then getting on to our re-rank of 2021 rookies, and there has been some shifting around. This will be we default to Superflex tight end premium format. So will the Muth make it? Who knows? You'll have to stay tuned for our consensus top 12. But first, let's talk about some storylines from this past week. And just want to start with, just as soon as we started to actually worry about Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, they decided it's no longer preseason and they're here to play, and absolutely shellacked the Las Vegas Raiders. Something like, what was it? Mahomes had 400 plus yards, five touchdowns, 41 total points for the Kansas City Chiefs. And their defense
played
played pretty well too.
Like they just they get Melvin Ingram, and it just all of a sudden everything fell into place. Like they got Chris Ford in the right spot. I don't know. Like it was just
I don't really know. It's like they showed up and were like, "Oh, football. That's what we're playing. Oh, okay. All right, we got this. We know how to do this." I can't explain it. It's like it looks like they hadn't skipped a beat. It was night and day from what they've looked like, especially the past few weeks.
Well, they didn't seem to just want to win either. It's like, no, we need to embarrass this other team. And it's
just talk about kicking a team while it's down. Jesus.
Yeah. What better team than the Raiders to just...
Yeah, and Mahomes did his normal, like, he threw, like, the Darrell Williams touchdown, whereas, like, don't throw that, Patrick. And he just chucked it up, and then Williams made, like, a really great catch for a running back who, you know, wasn't supposed to be good. He might be, I don't know, pretty good or okay. I don't know what's going on there, but it was that Mahomes throw that was getting intercepted pretty much all year. Now it's landing again, so who knows? Like, sky's the limit. They probably win that division, and they're right back in it. You know,
they're first place in the division now. All of a sudden, they're 6-4. Chargers look to have come down to earth, particularly their defense. Their defense is not good, and so that division. Obviously, the Raiders are struggling right now. So Kansas City right back in it. Don't count them out. Don't call it a comeback, but it's a comeback. But let's talk about some other storylines, and let's just go around the horn. Andrew, what's the storyline from Week 10 that caught your eye?
I guess I was kind of surprised that in the absence of Aaron Jones, when he's going down, that A.J. Dillon kind of stepped in again. I feel like he's been one of those guys that, when called upon, has kind of been able to really like run with that. No pun intended. But I guess it's almost a thought that with Aaron Jones being out for a few weeks, I start wondering what the value is on him and what we like feel like because I mean, he came out with pretty decent pedigree. Like they were pretty high. I believe, wasn't he a second round pick? I want to say
second round pick. I mean,
like higher than we thought, and kind of came out with
guy. Yeah.
It kind of profile as like, I think the biggest knock on him was like not as physical, like for his size. Like he was almost someone who like didn't have the power you'd imagine in a 6 foot, almost 250 pound back. But I feel like he's sort of shown that he does have that power and can kind of move things along a bit. But I also can't help but feel like his potential feels very similar to an Alexander Madison in that, like, hey, when the opportunity comes, like he can do stuff. You can rely on him. But does he really have any sort of fantasy upside in that? If Aaron Jones is back, Aaron Jones is the guy. And I guess that sort of sits in the middle of things, but I imagine that he's a guy that I just consider a sell high at this point, with him sort of having a few big performances when the opportunity came, because I just don't know what the future of the future of opportunities looks like should Aaron Jones still be there and he continues to just be the next guy up in the backfield.
Yeah, so Aaron Jones has an MCL sprain. We've seen that keep guys out for a few weeks, depending on the severity, possibly
they have a
longer.
bye week 13. I would imagine he sits out through that.
I can't imagine him coming back sooner.
2 weeks, 2 games, and then a bye. I gotta think he sits out through the bye,
but it creates a weird situation because, especially given the attrition at the running back position, A.J. Dillon immediately becomes probably a top 15 ish. Back, but Aaron Jones could be back just in time for the fantasy playoffs. So, like, in what scenario are you buying A.J. Dillon? Jay,
if you need to win,
you need that depth. Yeah.
Like that's a team that's your 5-5 teams, 6-4 even. Maybe you have visions of a bye, which is important. Escape that first week of the playoffs. The teams that need to win. That's the thing. If you're planning for the playoffs and you're like, I'm sitting at 9-1, you probably skip AJ Dillon because, to your point, he might not be starting for you in the playoffs if Aaron Jones is back during those games.
Yeah. I mean, probably not, frankly, just because of the nature of the injury at this point.
He did have some, he had standalone value from the standpoint of, there were certain games where he had 15 carries in a game, 11, 16.
He's gotten
deep
work.
Flex, where you're it's risky, but it's no more risky than playing Naheem Hines, honestly, because he was getting some volume in games where they ran it plenty, but still dicey and probably need to get a touchdown to have a serious game for you. But now, while Jones is out for these couple weeks, he definitely top 15 play.
Yeah. And that's where I feel that standalone value is where I thought of the Madison comparison to, because he's someone who's no stranger to coming in for a series and maybe being able to vulture some points in that change-up role.
Yeah.
Dillon kind of gets that same ability. Maybe to a better extent, you see someone like Pollard succeeding. I mean, these are all completely different types of backs, but it feels like their upside or standalone value is similar.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess it's a touchdown dependent, RB3 maybe, especially if they kind of pace Aaron Jones back when he gets there. And I mean, I wouldn't feel great about starting him in the fantasy playoffs, but if you have to in a pinch, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, because there's going to be more running backs who go down too. That's just the position where you need contingency plans. Let's move on to another storyline. Jay, what else caught your eye?
Cam Newton is back. I don't know if you
I'm
saw
back!
him. I'm back.
I'm back!
What a
I
fun
was eating
pitch he
cereal
caught
last
on
week.
that.
Now I'm back.
I'm not gonna lie, it was awesome. I loved it when
I
he
mean,
pulled
it's-
off his helmet. Well worth the penalty. I was like, all right, I love Cam Newton.
I mean, it's a lot more entertaining on that team than, I don't know, PJ Walker or Sam Darnold, to be honest.
It is, and
I
it's
mean,
a lot more entertaining on that team than it is on the New England Patriots. Just
Yeah,
for our
not,
own,
not on
fandom.
my team, but on that team, sure. Totally.
On the Panthers, love it.
I like to know he's starting somewhere, not for us, but somewhere.
Yeah, all day for that. But I mean, dude, on the week, he barely played in this game, and he finished on the week as QB 17 somehow.
That's awesome. Well, he had
This
that
was a
rushing
bad
touchdown.
week. Yeah, and a
Also,
passing
can I just
touchdown.
say, he looked spry on that rushing touchdown.
Yeah, he
was
clearly
accelerating.
not
He broke
just
tackles.
eating cereal. He's clearly
No,
been running.
he is.
Or, you know,
he is
some
in shape.
calisthenics.
He's vaccinated and ready to go.
Oh yeah.
Is he? Did he get vaccinated?
I
Did there was a video that like long
Oh
after,
God! Oh
I
right,
think-
right.
I think, like,
I remember
3
that
weeks
now.
ago there was a bit one of the Funk Friday videos that he does or I can't remember what it is.
Fucking love Cam Newton.
Yeah.
So much.
Yeah, he
fun.
announced it on that like
Hey, and
Good.
he had
Oh,
COVID
yeah, that-
last year too, he didn't play well after COVID. So I mean,
No.
I mean, we talked about it here that it's very likely that the repercussions of getting COVID last year like highly affected his game. It's hard to quantify now retroactively, but you know, it's tough to say that after a couple of games of looking fine, he comes back and just look like absolute garbage. So
I mean, do they make him the starter? That's
Yes.
got to be the plan, right?
I
I can't
think
imagine.
so.
I can't
God, I
imagine
hope so.
Cam signing somewhere just to be the backup.
he's
to
definitely
PJ
over
Walker.
PJ Walker. And then the question would be if Sam Darnold came back in time. But I think by that point, Cam will have
Sam
established himself
Darnold's
to
been
a point.
so bad.
Yeah.
He's
Like I
been
don't think
so
Cam
bad.
Newton has to do a whole lot to probably take that the rest of the year.
well, also I feel like that locker room all the guys he's played with before that probably already love him.
Did
like,
you
they're
see
like,
how
"We're behind this
excited
guy."
Christian McCaffrey was on that touchdown? Just like
Oh
full on.
yeah. It's
Like
like the band's
Christian
back,
McCaffrey lost his mind.
it's like the band's back together again. Like it's just it's fun
And
to see.
frankly,
I like it.
Sam Darnold was terrible for 4 weeks in a row after the beginning of the season. Oh, wait, this is some news broken by Gary in Gary's corner. Announced he's starting. I'm announced that he's starting.
Starting to
from
start-
Gary,
he's
Gary
definitely
Schefter report.
Gary Schefter reporting.
starting. Nice. But for,
I mean, I figured that's the thing. He wouldn't have signed because he didn't want to play. He wouldn't be on a team if he was willing to be a backup. That's why I assumed he went to Carolina.
It's just
So
a perfect
he said
scenario
he's
for him
back.
to come back.
I don't know what else that means.
I don't know
And
what else you
for
wanna say.
fantasy. I mean, for fantasy, he's
He's like, I'm back up.
that's it.
Well, I mean, for fantasy to move it towards there,
He's-
you just said he had like 4 touches today, and he
Really solid.
was QB 17. The rushing upside is great. I mean, he gives you a high floor. This guy could be a difference maker for a team, particularly in Superflex.
If you
were a
that out
little-
for a full game, he would have had like 60 points.
give him 30
QB1.
touches, and that's like a new
Mahomes
record.
who?
Listen, we still know he's not going to be the best passer in the world. He never has been, and he certainly hasn't gotten better from his peak. So that's still going to be a struggle. But on the ground, he's going to rack up some touchdowns. I think he's going to be able to move this offense, particularly with the outlet of Christian McCaffrey, who covers a lot of ills, who also looked good and healthy in this game. So that was nice to see as well. But yeah, super excited for Cam Newton to be back, and I feel kind of bad for Sam Darnold though, because I don't think he's getting that job back.
No, and
Yep.
do you think they lightened McCaffrey's load enough? You guys good with the workload he's getting on Panthers?
Well, it was like one game off, and then they were like,
Yeah.
"Okay, you're good to go." How many touches did he get this past week?
Like 30. I don't know,
something
like
crazy. It was back to
Yeah.
his normal thing. I mean,
Dancing
listen,
with the devil.
They're gonna do that, and I just feel
you dance with the devil that brought you, Andrew. That's
what
The devil
live
who
by the
brought you
McCaffrey,
here.
die by the McCaffrey. That's what I always say.
Yeah, no, he had 23 touches. That's totally
So
fine.
a light day for him.
All right, he's RB1 in Dynasty again. You have. No,
Yeah. We'll see if he can sustain and stay on the field. And this team's still kind of in playoff contention.
Yeah, everybody is.
Everybody is. Everybody in the
It's wide
entire
open.
league,
The
AFC and
league's wide
NFC.
open.
It really
Except
is.
for the Lions. They're out of it.
They're not making it. Although,
Hey, they worked
congrats,
hard for
Dan
that
Campbell.
tie.
Dan Campbell, you ended your losing streak. The Lions are no longer, they're winless, but they're not.
Still winless. Yeah.
Is that the first time you've got the tie has happened before the win? Although he had a win as like an interim coach before, so I guess technically he's on Miami. He got a win there. So
good for him.
But a tie coming before the win that's poetic.
Yeah, that's pretty special. Let's move on. I think there's maybe a couple more. There's not really anything more to say about OBJ to the Rams. That absolutely happened after our show last week. If you're paying attention at all, you know everything that's happened with Odell Beckham Jr. going to the Rams and Robert Woods tearing his ACL and the beatdown they got from San Francisco last night. Their terrible worst game of the week from That's great.
That wasn't the worst game of the week. They were
No. The worst game of the week was the Lions Steelers. That was the ugliest game.
Baltimore, Miami was real bad too.
Oof, that was terrible.
Another
watched a lot more of that.
prime game.
So a lot of competition for that.
You had Debo last night. Debo was fantastic. So
Debo was great, and Kittle was pretty good. Cooper Kupp racked up a bunch of catches, and
Tyler Higbee's
time as well.
terrible.
Tyler Higbee, those may have been two of the worst drops ever. One was just like, here you go, Kyle Fuller, have a pick six. And then the other one was just like at the most crucial time. Wasn't that a third down? They really needed to move that drive along. The game wasn't quite out of hand. It was just bad. Tyler Higbee. You know what it's time for? Jacob Harris to start at tight end.
Yeah, I don't care if he doesn't know how to play football or whatever.
Converted tight end, yeah.
Just to round up a couple more injury news stuff. Dallas Goedert's in concussion protocol, so keep an eye on that. Kyler Murray is probably going to be another game time decision this week. So that's Kyler Murray. I feel like he's tough towards the end of the year. I feel like he's going to take. Is he going to be
Kyler game time decision Murray for the rest of his career?
Maybe.
It feels like he comes back. I mean, they got one good game out of McCoy.
They kind of have to win this game. People are like, they're like, take it into the bye. Like, you could beat Seattle. It's like, you were in play for the bye. What are you doing? Like, you want to lose this game to Seattle? They could lose that game.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, everyone else is just blowing it too, because Tampa Bay lost to Washington over the weekend.
True. Green Bay won, and Green Bay's not going to lose a ton of games.
No, Green Bay's 8-7-2 now.
2 losses. So, yeah,
2 losses. I think. There's a lot of. This league's a mess right now. I don't know who's actually good.
There are really no great teams. Well, maybe it was the Chiefs. Chiefs were just hiding. I don't know. Maybe that was it.
That's the thing. As soon as you start trying to make a case for any team, you're like, oh, but then there's that like really bad performance here, or like, oh, we think the Chiefs are great. They go on this weird sort of slump where, like, even if they're winning, it's just like really gross wins against a Green Bay team with no Aaron Rodgers. Oh, Buffalo's good, and then Buffalo drops that one to the Jags. It's just every team that we think are like the top contenders seem to be able to drop a tough loss. Tampa Bay loses to Washington.
Bills lose to the Jaguars, or Jaguars when they play in London.
Yes, my second example.
But I mean, the Bills did bounce back this week, as did Dallas. Both absolutely creamed the teams that they faced. So
it's teams that they faced.
The quote unquote teams that they faced being the Jets and who did
the corpse
Cowboys
of the
play?
Falcons.
Oh, the Falcons. Yeah, the Falcons are a fraud team. That those 5 wins are.
They were in a playoff position.
They were. They're not anymore.
They should have gone for OBJ. That was the answer.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that team. Just throw it more to Kyle Pitts. Like I don't know what you're doing half the time.
I don't know what happened in that game.
That game was the Dallas Cowboys got embarrassed the week before and did what the Cowboys rarely do, which was rise to the challenge. So that was nice.
Kansas City did. Like Kansas City had been bad, and then they came back embarrassed. Oakland, the Cowboys did the same thing. Oh, we were terrible last week against Denver. We're gonna come and we're just gonna destroy. We're just gonna destroy this Atlanta team.
And they did. And
Dan Quinn revenge game. So.
Oh yeah, that's true. That was a subplot.
I mean, he knew that whole. Yeah, I mean, inside.
He knows what Matt Ryan can, and more importantly, what he can't do.
I mean, he must. He definitely did.
At this point, yeah. Then that's fine. I mean, there was actually pretty good at one point. It was 28-3.
I saw the 28-3,
and then people were all like. No. I mean, it was just kind of Atlanta. Anytime it's 28-3, they're gonna get text. But then the Atlanta Falcons official Twitter was like, "Yeah, we know," was their tweet, and I was like, "Give that social media person a raise because that's good. That's funny." Should we move on to our rookie re-ranks?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, let's do it. So let's start out with the top. Let's start off with the top 3 in our consensus ranks because I think there's some interesting debate here. So again, we are defaulting to Superflex Tight End Premium for the purpose of our rankings. And our consensus came out Trevor Lawrence, number 1, Justin Fields, number 2, and Jamar Chase, number 3, which in our consensus, there's no surprise. But Jay actually had Jamar Chase number 1 overall in his rankings. So just Jay, unpack that, explain your reasoning for bumping up Jamar Chase, despite, different positional needs all the way up to the 101 overall.
Yeah. 101 overall for me with Chase was he's having the best season. Him and Najee, are the 2 best, performing rookies on a week-to-week basis. But when you look at Chase, he is basically on pace to break the rookie record in terms of receiving. And have tried to talk to anybody about a Jamar Chase trade lately. I mean, just the entire everything surrounding Chase is just this hype machine where I feel comfortable taking him because I feel like he's the best asset out of any of them as well, because even if you took him and wanted to move him, you could get a lot. I almost look at it as like if you pass on a quarterback, you almost could, if you had to, you could probably trade Chase for a more established quarterback than the other guys on the list right now. Like I just feel like that's how, and maybe it cools, but at this
it feels
point,
almost like self-fulfilling in a way. Like he is because we say he is. Like
it has like everything in it. It's not like he doesn't perform either. If you just take him, we've already ranked. We were doing our wide receivers a couple weeks ago. He was a top 5, basically consensus wide receiver for Dynasty going forward, and you can build a team around that. Granted, Superflex, I tend to lean towards the quarterbacks, but when you can have a player that has, you could build your team around it as a wide receiver, which we all know that's a bigger, they have a longer shelf life than running backs, and then also have that perceived value around like the trade market, and you could potentially move him for as just a fallback plan. It's just a nice combination, which rises him above some quarterbacks, which I like. I have the quarterbacks just, basically with him in my top tier, but I just elevate him to the top because I know what I have in him. I know what I could potentially get for him in a trade market, and I feel comfortable building a team around him versus the quarterbacks where I really like them, but I also obviously want to see them play, I guess, more games where it's, man, he's crushed it so far, and I feel like he's just a known commodity at this point.
Yeah, I think there is an argument to be made, and I think you can make it for both Chase and Najee, and to a lesser extent Kyle Pitts, who's been a little more up and down. Although we'll get to him in a little bit, but for the tight end position, it's different of being just sure things because we're seeing it right now. I still just go back to the value of QBs, and Andrew, you and I both had Lawrence and Fields as 101 and 102, and given the pedigree, given the pre-draft analysis, and given at least the flashes I've seen from both of them on the upside, I was comfortable leaving those at the 101 and 102 because I think they can be difference makers in top 5 at their position going forward, which was not, but that's not to say that like I'm just blindly putting quarterbacks ahead, because I certainly separated out the other quarterbacks in different perspectives because there are different questions with them, and that did out and the realized value of some of these other players did factor in over the quarterbacks. Andrew, anything to add there?
Yeah, no, I think in a way I kind of stuck with still from a Superflex perspective that quarterback is still just king. So the guys that I like, Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, still display and project towards that top 5 QB potential that we hope for them. If that fulfills, like, you got to figure, even if Jamar Chase ends up being like an epic, just like a Calvin Johnson type, a Larry Fitzgerald type, even in those years, you were taking the top quarterbacks in Superflex over those guys. So it's a lot of projecting, but I feel like I'm still just valuing on the long game and just knowing that because quarterback is top in these, it's like I'd still put my money on them in the longevity that you can get out of them. Regardless, but love Jamar Chase. And I think it goes without saying that the way we came into this rookie draft in the offseason, where the 101 was so far above that Trevor Lawrence, I think it's fair to say that this grouping is much closer, like this top 5, especially for me, with Lawrence, Fields, Chase, Najee, Pitts.
Yeah.
It is a much more condensed kind of I feel like that top 5 is a tier for me.
Yeah, I mean, and it really just speaks to the strength of Chase, Najee, and Pitts. Really, who I think there is an argument that can be made for each of them as the number 1 dynasty asset at each of their positions. There's an argument. I wouldn't go there with Najee quite yet, especially just because Jonathan Taylor.
But I think you were close. Didn't you have Najee as a?
I think I had him at number 2. I had him at number 2.
You're right, knocking on the door there. It'd be hard to put him over Jonathan Taylor. Or,
but still, like that's an exceptional place to have these players in this early in their careers and having shown out as much as they had. But let's move on. Let's move on to some of those players and dive a little bit deeper. So I'm going to give the next 4 because I think it's an interesting group to talk about, because we have at the 104 consensus Najee Harris, Kyle Pitts at the 105 consensus, Trey Lance at the 106, and Mac Jones at the 107. So this is where we started to make a deviation between our top 2 quarterbacks and our next 2 quarterbacks. And Jay, you had Trey Lance a little higher and you had Mac Jones a little bit lower. Andrew, I think you came in right where I had him, where I had that clear top 5 with Najee, Pitts, and Chase in that 3, 4, 5 tier, and then Trey Lance and Mac Jones afterwards. So let's stick with the quarterbacks a little bit, and I think Mac Jones is an interesting one to talk about. So Jay, I'll throw it to you on Mac Jones, who the narrative is that he's been very successful this year. He's got a winning record. He's on a good team. He's performed well. Why isn't Mac Jones higher, I guess, is my question.
Yeah, I have Mac Jones. I have him at 9 overall here.
Yeah, just behind Devante Smith, you have him at 9.
So I have him there. I kind of separated my favorite guys outside of him, where I have Javonte. I think our difference is I have Javonte and Devante Smith, who I think are kind of special players at their position. Jones, I moved up because I think we consensus had him more towards like the back end. I think I might have had him at 12 before the season started. I was comfortable with all the other players over him, and I had him as my 5th quarterback. Now I've moved him up because I think he's actually shown himself as like the best kind of pro-ready quarterback from an NFL standpoint. He's winning games. He's playing really, really well in the system. However, it doesn't necessarily translate to like the highest ceiling of fantasy points, but he's really kind of a rock-solid QB2 most part, maybe more mid, somewhere around there. But I think he's only broke points once this year. And I think that was like a 21-point performance. So he's generally probably going to live in that 15-point area. So some of the other players that I bumped ahead of him were just ones that I feel like could be a little bit more difference makers at their position versus him where, yeah, I like Mac Jones on my team, especially in Superflex as my QB2. I just think the ceiling capped. So while I've moved him up, he still doesn't quite rise to, higher for me there in terms of that top 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting if you wouldn't imagine like the situations and kind of the narrative relative to themselves that has been told of like Mac Jones is excelling, Trevor Lawrence has been struggling relative to himself and his expectation. Mac Jones is averaging just a few tenths more of a point per game more than Trevor Lawrence so far in the season, and that's kind of the worry there with Mac Jones because that offense is really clicking. So like I don't see necessarily like I think that team at its best is running the ball, playing good defense, and Mac Jones is picking and choosing his spots and taking care of the ball. I think that's the best situation for Mac Jones, which is good. He's made good decisions. He's made plays when he's had to. He gives you nothing with his legs. We knew that going in. And he's not necessarily like he's not going to be a guy that is chucking it 60 yards down the field consistently. He's going to be more in the short and intermediate game, moving the offensive long, having good timing, being accurate, taking care of the football. And that's great from a floor standpoint as a QB2, but I just don't see a scenario where Mac Jones is winning you championships. And so I kind of had him like in this tier. I'm so bad with ranks sometimes. I have to really do tiers. So I put him in a tier basically that has Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Devante Smith, Javonte Williams, and Jalen Waddle. I'm fine with any of those guys in any order, frankly. I mean, to a lesser extent, I had them ranked as I want to rank them, but like, I wouldn't be shocked if you're like, no, I want Jalen Waddle as my 6th overall player. I believe that. I wouldn't agree with it, but I still wouldn't be shocked that someone would have that. So like, that's kind of where I am with that, where I'm like fine with any of those players. At the number 6 overall, particularly Javonte and Devante Smith, who I think, as you said, Jay, are could be special players at their position. But let's move to Trey Lance a little bit because Andrew, I think he's kind of the hardest one to rank out of the quarterbacks for me because like I could put him as far up as Jay said, because if we're projecting, he has all the tools to do it. He has all the tools to be a top 5. That I mean, we've seen how Jalen Hurts is like up towards that end. It is not a prolific passer of the ball. We know the rushing upside is there for Trey Lance. He's got like a Cam Newton type physicality at that position. But we've also seen that he's really raw passing the football. Like he really needs to grow in that respect. So like, how do you grapple with that raw talent versus the very clear need for development in your rankings?
Yeah, I really think it comes down to the fact that I'm still going on my preseason evaluation of him, and I just don't really feel like we've quite seen enough of Trey Lance to make a decision one way or another. So I feel like he continues to be that we don't know what we have yet. We just know that he's still that raw talent. And the 49ers, when Jimmy Garoppolo is available, are still erring towards starting him. So it's hard to see any sort of trends form to get a real evaluation. Like you want to be able to see like a good 3-4 games strung together, how they react against different opponents, like what they're doing. And it just, we don't really have that on Trey Lance. So in respect to sticking by my take earlier, I keep him right in that range of 6-7, which I think I kind of lost some of my like post-draft preseason type of rankings. But to be honest, like I've got Mac Jones right after him, but I consider him and Trey Lance sort of dead even at this point. I know you guys probably err on the lower side for Mac. I'm probably the highest on Mac Jones because I
couldn't be
like,
more opposite. Like, to
well,
be
that's
honest,
why
like,
I feel like they're perfectly sandwiched together in rankings because, yeah, they offer the complete, like, Trey Lance could just be this incredibly gifted, just fantasy beast. We've talked about, like, it's like his mobility and ability to just make plays happen, like, and put the offense on his back and just do something with nothing. Like, you know, he wasn't exactly playing with the best of talent over at, wow, I'm blanking on the school he went
North
to. North Dakota State.
It seems like he was exclusively playing with fullbacks. I just want
yeah,
to say
no, that's what I remember. He just had tight ends and
fullbacks.
fullbacks. So I mean, he can make something out of nothing. And
a lot of James Devlins out there.
He has a lot of talent with him at the 49ers. So it just feels like pure upside. But Mac Jones was someone that I think I was also highest. I might have had him around 10 in preseason, like at the end of it before things started to play. And honestly, I've been impressed with what he's done. I do think it's a little concerning when you watch a game that was just a beatdown against the Browns, and he still sort of only comes away with like, 3 touchdowns is good, but like just under 200 yards, no rushing yards,
18 points.
Yeah, still on a great week. Objectively puts together that. But I guess my thought is that the Patriots are getting exactly what they want out of him right now. Mm-hmm. And that's not to say that, like, if we're going to project for other players, like our Lawrence and Fields, I feel like we have to admit that Mac Jones is, even despite the floor projections, is looking better than we thought he would. He's kind of hitting that top end potential with the Patriots offense. And I think you can project that maybe later he gets to do like a little more creative stuff, like gets to do more. They lessen the leash a little bit more as they begin to trust him and he gets more comfortable. I think there's still an upside in his development and that this isn't the best we've seen out of him. And with that, I kind of bump him up to that 7 spot, tied with Lance at 6, because I think he's earned it. And I think he's got a little more upside than we give him credit for.
Yeah, I can get behind that. I think there's definitely more room to grow with
like
him.
He
and
made some nice
does.
That touchdown to Bourne this week, like passing through double cut. Like it's like he's got some skills. Like
no, it's not a question
really
of his skills. I think he's a good NFL quarterback. It's just how much, like, what is the ceiling fantasy wise does that translate to? I think he can be a winning.
That's the big question.
Yeah, I think he can be a winning quarterback in the NFL. He already is a winning quarterback in the NFL. And what was an ideal situation? Like when he came out and got drafted by the Patriots, like besides my disappointment that the Patriots didn't trade up for Justin Fields, it was a situation where you were like, of all of the quarterbacks, Mac Jones is in by far the best situation once he starts. Maybe Trey Lance to a lesser extent, but given his development period. But even as we've seen, like there's some issues in San Francisco as well. But like he was set up for success from the beginning and didn't have to do that much and hasn't had to do that much. He's been able to do his he didn't have to do. I'm just gonna bring up this comment.
Yes.
Stop comparing Mac Jones to Brady. They wear the same uniform. They're not the same player.
Do you want to hear a fun stat on quarterbacks this year?
I do want to hear.
Who've broken 20 points. Do you know who has the most over 20-point games in fantasy? And just a normal quarterback scoring 4 points, -1 interception. Do you know who has the most
as
over 20-point games this year of the rookies in this class?
I would guess Davis
Mills.
It's Davis Mills. I can't believe you guys guessed it. It's Davis Mills. Yeah. But you know who's second all tied? Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Trevor Lawrence, and Fields all have 1. Zach Wilson has none. But
none. Zach Wilson
Trey
really
Lance
doesn't even have 1 even in that Tennessee game?
No. Trey Lance has played
fewer games,
two games. Like he's barely played, so that's where I give him a longer. I just haven't seen enough of Trey Lance, and that was the one I thought was the least ready to start in the NFL.
Yeah, but it shows the floor that he gives you with his legs when he starts.
Oh yeah, which that's like, why I'm
Trey Lance is
the
it's the Jalen Hurts question of like or Lamar Jackson question probably a little, because I think Trey Lance is a better prospect than Jalen Hurts overall. But like, can they rise enough in the passing game? Can they get to that point? Because I think it's even more than just a point of did they make some throws or did they not make some throws. Trey Lance has made some throws where you're like, oh yeah, he's got it. I think Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence especially, and Mac Jones have shown some sophistication. There we go. That's the word. In their ability at moments in the passing game that Trey Lance and Zach Wilson certainly have not, even though particularly with Fields and Lawrence, it has come in fits and spurts with some problems as well adjusting to the NFL game. But yeah, Trey Lance, I want to see him start more. So we'll get more of a picture next year, because I don't think unless Jimmy Garoppolo gets injured again, you're not going to see Trey Lance again, just because that seems to be the plan.
In it. 7th seed, they could,
they might as well be.
They're in the hunt, baby.
And I will say, Jimmy Garoppolo has not looked bad. Like
Did you see the record they posted? They win. I mean, it's kind of crazy, the record with Jimmy and not with Jimmy. They do win with Jimmy. It's
but
true.
I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I'm honestly actually really fascinated with Jimmy Garoppolo as kind of a buy low candidate ish, because I think he has another starting job.
He'll probably start for. Another team next year, the Browns or something. Yeah.
Like, I think he could be a guy who some team is like. I think he could be a guy who people are like, yeah, we're gonna sign him and we're gonna roll with him. Like, could it be the Houston? I think is an opportunity if they don't want to draft some guy and rebuild. But the Saints, if Jameis Winston isn't the guy that they want to bring back next year, if he's not ready, like that's a team where you're like, okay, we can compete. If we have a guy who can operate this offense. Jimmy Garoppolo can operate an offense. Pittsburgh is the team I keep throwing out there where I'm like, if Ben retires this offseason, which he should, Jimmy Garoppolo on Pittsburgh and spend some draft capital on that offensive line and get some guys in there, that team could be pretty good. Like,
you wouldn't
like,
go with
legit.
Mason Rudolph? You wouldn't go with Mason?
No.
You don't want to give him a shot?
No.
I need to see more Mason.
I've seen enough Mason Rudolph. We've got enough from there. Let's move on to our next crop of guys. So we've already mentioned them a couple times, but at the 108, we had Devante Smith. The 109, we had Javonte Williams. At the 110, we had Jalen Waddle. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot of surprises here. I think all of these guys, have looked really good this season in not ideal situations. We've talked a lot about Devante Smith before, who just although has come on recently. Did you see that catch against Patrick Surtain?
That was awesome.
Yes.
That was everyone. You can have questions about the offensive
His BMI,
system.
though. I mean, I don't know how he did that.
He is also, and take this with a grain of salt because PFF rankings are wonky. I don't necessarily subscribe to him. He's the number 6 ranked pass blocker, run blocker, or blocker as at the wide receiver position. Like, he's getting off of press coverage. He's blocking like a beast, and he's mossing Patrick Surtain, who has been terrific this season, by the way, and had really good coverage on him, by the way. Former teammates at Alabama on the national championship team. Man, what a catch that was. And he's made his ball skills. If you look at the stat line, it doesn't really do Devante Smith justice. His ball skills, some of the catches he's made this season have been ridiculous. He's a stud. He's going to be great. And I feel the same way about Jalen Waddle. His yards per catch aren't high. He's getting a lot of short stuff. It's only a matter of time before he breaks one because he's scary with the ball in his hand. If you've watched it, it's he's been really close a few times to breaking one off. He's just got that twitch to him, and it's only a matter of time with him. Let's talk a little bit about Javonte Williams, though. With what you've seen from him, Jay. Obviously, you're the biggest cheerleader for Javonte. All I have in my notes is free Javonte. Is he the new Aaron Jones in terms of like just let him run, just let him do it?
Yeah, exactly. I think Aaron Jones. Who was he fighting off at that point? It was
Jamal Williams.
Jamal Williams. I mean, Melvin Gordon's probably better than Jamal Williams, so I guess there's that. And they're just gonna play the veteran. Anytime you watch,
move on easier, I think.
Yeah, anytime you watch Devante play, though, it's usually great. I mean, he's got breakaway runs. He's got a broken tackle rate that is ridiculous. Those two things combined, he's like almost leading the league. Like he's on par with like Jonathan Taylor in terms of like those, not necessarily 78-yard runs, but breaking off chunk 50, 30-yard runs.
Feels like a generous comparison, Jay.
I mean, honestly, he's better. I mean, he's the number one now. No, but he's a broken tackle machine. He does everything that we want him to do. Just it's only a question of usage and playing time at this point.
Oh, for sure.
Here's a stat that I love with Javonte. Javonte is averaging 3.67 yards after contact this season. That is fourth amongst running backs with at least 100 carries. I think there's no one else that's even close in carries to those guys. And it's the guys above him are like Nick Chubb, Henry, I believe, and there's a surprise one. Who's also a
Cordarrelle Patterson?
No, it's not Cordarrelle Patterson.
Rookie?
Also
Running
a rookie. Rookie running back who is third in yards after contact, just ahead of Javonte. Any guesses?
Elijah Mitchell.
It's Elijah Mitchell.
Nice. Yeah. I like him too. So.
He's a little bit outside of our top 12, but he's an interesting one to talk about.
He's much closer than he was.
Oh yeah, I think
probably the biggest riser.
Yeah. Same, yeah.
I think he's our consensus 15.
Yeah, that's probably a 15 to 20.
Yeah, that's
place jump.
He was a borderline fourth rounder. I think he probably was a third rounder in most of our drafts, just because I think, well, Jay, you were in those drafts, so I think you got every share of Elijah Mitchell.
If you look at our rankings side by side, we all have him at 15.
Nice, yeah.
Do we?
That's the right spot. I think that's.
It felt right, yeah.
It's true. Although none of you have him as high as I have Pat Freiermuth.
I have him ahead of the Muth.
People around him is different.
I love Pat Freiermuth. I don't even care.
I have a one spot ahead of the Muth. Muth's right.
But back to Javonte, just to put a bow on that. It's just a matter of time before he gets the keys to a castle. I think we all like what we've seen, and I feel like the only reason that I have him I feel like I'm actually kind of like in real time switching things up. I think I'm with you, Jay. I think Devante and Javonte belong up at above Trey Lance and Mac Jones for me. I think Trey Lance is in that group, but certainly above Mac Jones for me right now, just because I think they're more of difference makers at their position at a time. Let's move on to the last two in our top 12, which consensus at the 111 is Zach Wilson. And honestly, that's maybe generous for Zach Wilson. And at the 112, we have Rashad Bateman. Let's start with Zach Wilson, because Andrew, I think you are the highest on him. I had him at 12, I believe. Or no, you had him at 10 overall, Andrew. I had him at 11. And that was hard to do. So yeah, let's talk about Zach Wilson.
It's like plummeting value, and it's just like it's at risk to continue to fall. But I feel like it's before the pod we were talking a little bit that while I feel like I made some big changes to this, like I didn't want to make any like wild jumps, whereas like Zach Wilson was probably sitting at that like 5 spot before. I felt like it was pretty extreme to dump him to like like 10 and lower. So it's not to say he can't get lower if he continues to not perform, but I'm not going to give him the Trey Sermon treatment and just like toss him out altogether.
Yeah, I think the way I looked at it is I flip-flopped him with my pre-draft Mac Jones ranking, where I was like, I feel
Makes
like
sense.
my top 10 is the same. Well,
Your top
no, I
11.
have ETN a little lower just because the injury, and it's less about ETN. We haven't seen him. James Robinson looks good, and I think it would be a shame. I think it wouldn't behoove the Jaguars to like shelve James Robinson long term. But that's another conversation for another day. With Zach Wilson, I feel like I put him just outside of that top 10 that I feel like terrific about. Like all of those top 10, I love those guys. I think they're all staple starters going forward for you in Dynasty. Zach Wilson, he hasn't looked good, but solely for the pre-draft analysis where I wasn't as high on him as I think the community at large, but still understand that he's a number 2 overall pick. He has some great tape from college. He's just been terrible this season. He's just been bad. I don't know what else to say. Right? So like I'm holding him at 11 right now, but I honestly, if you had a gun to my head, if I had to choose between bust or success, I'd choose bust right now.
But didn't we leave room that in this is also with the caveat of he's, I think, been worse than we even expected. But I think we thought he was the one. It was going to be a rough transition for him. We're on tape when we were originally talking about him and it might even be video of me speaking that it's like, I don't think he's going to be out of the gates as good as we might expect. He's, of course, the 102 overall. He's still going to a rough Jets team where there's going to be some development time. He's coming from a smaller program in BYU where, he tore it up there and he showed some incredible ball skills, had great accuracy and completion percentage, all of that going for him. But I think it was to be expected that he would have a rough time. The area where it gets tough now is it's like, but did we think it would be this rough?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to get at. Is it's not necessarily, I knew he would have a rough time. The fact that we've said multiple times, I think he's going to throw a lot of interceptions. That's proven to be true. It's how he's done that. It's not just that, like, you know what I mean? Like, you've watched Justin Fields, who has had some bad moments. You watch Trey Lance, who has had some bad moments, but at least I've never watched them and been like, the thought process is bad there, or they look lost completely. With Zach Wilson, there's times where I've watched and he's just looked.
We got to see 2 Patriot games like up close.
Oh yeah. And granted, that's against Belichick, but even other than that, there's just other games where I'm just like, he has no idea what he's doing, and it's not like he's thrown interception. It's like, okay, there's a difference between interceptions where it's like, okay, you could make that throw at BYU. You couldn't make that in the NFL. You need to make that progression. There's just been times where he just straight up throws it to
Here you go.
Team. It's just, it's bad. He doesn't work well within structure. Yeah, it's not a great situation. And even worse than all of that, it didn't get better. There wasn't week over week progression. And
there's barely been
kind
a
of the most frustrating part.
Maybe a slight glimpse in gains, like barely. Usually, something. Just there hasn't been anything yet. Doesn't mean it around, but like I think we even talked about it a little bit last week. Sometimes like even for the quarterback struggled their first year that didn't turn into busts. Like there's something you can hold on to, and I don't know if that exists at this point. So it's tough. And
I feel like there's even that for Davis Mills.
But I don't know. Yeah.
Like, I think there's even, like, at least something you can hang your hat on for Davis Mills, even, relative to his draft capital and where you thought he would be. Trey Lance, certainly, it's like, as much as we said he's raw and he still needs it, there was still, like, we still saw something. Like, there were moments of it. Every other quarterback, you've seen it in a drive, in a few drives, in a half.
Yeah, just watch Fields' Pittsburgh game.
Second half
or that
against
run
Pittsburgh
versus the 49ers, that crazy
Yeah.
The running touchdown he had, like that's
he's shown it. Yeah.
Yeah, you look at Lawrence versus Cincinnati, or I forget who they played the next game, or even like in that second half of the game this past weekend against Indianapolis on that fumble at the end of the game, which was unfortunate. Like these people are like these quarterbacks are all putting things together, and I think there was like a few. Like, there was that big Corey Davis touchdown in the Tennessee game for Zach Wilson. So I guess there's something there, and like other than the Keelan Cole throw, but most of it was just like a couple big chunk plays in there. But like, I need to see him string together like a methodical drive within structure. He's done nothing that's strung together within structure, which is frustrating. Like,
what would be interesting would be to see him maybe put someone like Michael Carter to work the way Carter's been used since he's been out. I feel like he's like, I don't know that Carter started to get used the way we see it, like until Wilson went down. Baby. It's just like, he's kind of a weapon that you might want to, instead of like looking for like hero ball type plays and forcing stuff that doesn't work. It's like, maybe take some of those safe plays to a good playmaker like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing he needs to learn how to do is like make the easy throws, like take what's given to you. And I think like part of that's on coaching to like scheme that up and coach that up. Like take these checkdowns. I feel the same way about it with Trevor Lawrence, where I feel like coaching staff's not doing him a lot of favors and giving him outlets that are just, except for Dan Arnold. And it's also like, I mean, it's also like for Fields, Lawrence and Wilson especially, like they don't have a lot of talent around them, so I understand the struggles to an extent. None of them have a good offensive line. None of them have exceptional offensive talents around them. Maybe Justin Fields has the most talent around him with Robinson and Mooney and Monty and Cole Kmet to a lesser extent. Elijah Moore looks like he's going to round into his own, and Corey Davis is pretty decent, but other than that, like, maybe they do need to use the running game more. It's not like any of those guys are world beaters, but at the same time, like, you gotta be able to make those easy throws, which is what Mac Jones has excelled at. That's what made Mac Jones work so far. Is like he's finding the screens, he's finding those high percentage throws to Hunter Henry, to Jacoby Myers, and Kendrick Bourne, and so it's like it's limiting the mistakes from an extent. Like part of it needs to be put on the coaches for all of these players. Like you got to put them in a situation
I was
to
just
succeed.
Thinking like how many, like that must be a really like tough thing to quantify. Like coaches that can handle like the upbringing of a new quarterback, both from the offensive coordinator and the head coach. That's like there's some people that are probably just not good at that, and it's probably. Like
Urban Meyer.
Like looking around, that's probably we probably don't even rate that high enough in terms of like you just like in some it's an unknown, some haven't had the opportunity, but that's a new thing. Like if you're working with a veteran, that takes a lot off the plate of a coach and offensive coordinator in terms of scheme. Their involvement in the offense has to raise to such a level when you have a rookie, and that's just a whole nother ball game. And I don't know if all of them can just handle that and put them. It falls on both sides. To your point,
it does.
Just, there's probably some that are just not good at it, and that's going to affect the quarterback, unfortunately. And that quarterback's development might be heavily skewed. I mean, look at what happened to Sam Darnold. Granted, he hasn't necessarily put it together since, but it's such a hard thing to overcome if you're not put in a good spot to succeed early on.
Yeah, and that extends to other situations, like even just going back to the Jaguars for a second. Like I think I was reading some stats today about like after DJ Chark went out, Laviska Shenault's been playing almost exclusively on the outside, and he's struggled. So why do they keep playing Laviska Shenault when Laviska Shenault
I don't know why he would ever play out there?
He was effective in the slot, and now it's basically like, so now you've basically taken Laviska Shenault out of the equation. When Laviska Shenault is good after the catch, you could have built some really easy stuff.
Shouldn't he be Jamal Agnew?
Yeah, instead you have Jamal Agnew, who's been fine, but he's not the same talent as Laviska Shenault, theoretically. Marvin Jones is washed, by the way. he does not look good. He cannot create separation.
That went quick.
Kind of dropped off, huh? But I still love that Jamal Agnew came up as just like a question out of left field on this podcast, 5 weeks ago. We're like, I don't even really know. I've like heard his name once, and then he's actually been highly productive since then.
Because it's him and Dan Arnold who are in a position to get separation.
He's in the Laviska role. Like we'll give him the D. Like we'll give him a screenplay. We'll give him a carry. Where you're manufacturing
slants,
touches for Agnew.
Slants,
not doing any of that for Laviska, which is weird. Just because that's
his
bread and butter is that
touches. Thing. Why aren't you giving them to me?
Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And man, that team needs some weapons. They need an offensive line. Chicago needs an offensive line. I know there's been some injuries on the Jets' offensive line, but I think these are the biggest things for these rookies, and why I'm more apt to like maintain their value a little bit in my rankings until the situations around them get better to the point where we have no excuse. Like it's the thing where like why Drew Lock dropped off so precipitously for us is because he was given every weapon and opportunity. He was given an offensive line that was solid. He was given weapons around him that were good. And when he didn't perform there, I didn't need a big sample size to decide Drew Lock's not it. And I think that's going to be the case with Zach Wilson, too. I'm going to withhold a little bit of judgment on Zach Wilson
I think we just judged him. I think we judged him.
I think we did.
I think we, in a roundabout way, just got our answer.
I said a little bit of judgment. I'm gonna
thinking of moving people down in real time.
I'm not gonna drop him off my board completely until I get
Trey Sermon. Where is he at in my? There we go. Slide him around.
Whoa, yeah, Trey Sermon.
Why are you looking at your round 5 rankings for rookie re-rank?
Yes.
I'm
officially anti-Sermon now. He's gone.
How the turns table. Let's talk a little bit about Rashad Bateman.
Oh, yes. I was hoping you wouldn't skip him because...
No.
Yeah.
Jay, take it away. Talk a little bit about Bateman. He's our consensus 12.
I almost want to debate him with Waddle just from a little bit of what was the knock on Bateman was Baltimore offense. They don't throw the ball enough. How are they going to, spread the ball around? They throw the ball now, folks. Yeah. They throw it a lot. And he has not had lower than 6 targets in a game, which he hasn't barely played this year because he was hurt to start. So he's only played 4 games. It's had 6, 6, 8, and 8 targets. And honestly, this is more of like an eye test. Like he hasn't put it together from necessarily a fantasy perspective, although he's scored over 10 points 3 times in a row in PPR. Granted, his high is 14, but once again, he didn't play at the beginning of the year. I just think he looks really good in that offense.
Got the looks
his
of
hands
a young
look
Pierre
great.
Garçon out
there. And
perfect for them too, because off of Brown, it's the perfect compliment. It
is between Marquise Hollywood Brown, Mark Andrews, and him and Rashad Bateman. It is a really well constructed receiving group that I really like, especially because he's that possession receiver. He gets open over the middle of the field. He finds the soft spot in zones. I don't think he's necessarily going to be and then Marquise Brown can do the get the ball in space and use his speed or run that go route down the field. Rashad Bateman's not going to be the deep threat consistently. I think he can go up and get it, but he's not going to be, he's at his best in the intermediate route game, over the middle of the field, on the sidelines, on deep outs, deep crossers.
It's got Devante Adams-esque, he kind of gives me
vibes in that role. I mean, a little bit how I'm trying to, Devante Adams type of role where it's not he's just kind of, possession receiver plus, I'll say, because I think possession receiver gets kind of a bad rap sometimes, where you're thinking about guys who are 8 yard per catch. I think this is a guy who's just gonna catch 10 to 20 yard chunks consistently. And I just want to see him use more in the red zone. That's my one concern about him going forward, is because they run the ball so much in the red zone, and then they use Mark Andrews a lot in the red zone. So it's can he carve out a role to get him more touchdowns and get into that range where he's catching 5 to 10 touchdowns a year, or hopefully more eventually. then I'll be like super on board with him. But yeah, he's looked great so far.
Yeah, there's a slight ceiling thing with him where I think there's something there where he could be more of like an alpha, where he's flirts with that top 12 like that. I feel like that's in him. So like I think he's like in the discussion there, which is why I like him in the solidly in the top 12 of the class.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of other. I do like him in the top 12 as well. I think I had him at number 12 or right there. Yeah, and it's not to like. This was a really good draft class. I mean, looking back at this, I think like usually I think there is more attrition in classes. I think the guys that we thought would be good have been good or have at least shown some flashes. Like just to give a preview of what's next for us. Like I think our next consensus guys are Travis Etienne. He's obviously been injured, but we like the pedigree. Elijah Moore. He's flashed. And when he's flashed, he's looked good. Elijah Mitchell, who is kind of a conundrum to rank because he's been the guy there so far, but San Francisco just makes me nervous. Is he going to be the guy long term? Is Raheem Mostert going to come back and be the guy? Are they going to work it? I just want to see it into next year before I completely commit to him. Pat Fryer move we've talked about. Michael Carter's looked good. Rondale Moore's had flashes. Ramondre Stevenson just carved up the Cleveland Browns 5th ranked pass defense. Kadarius Toney had that one crazy game and has been inconsistent, but it is flashed. Yeah, and then even after that,
Davis Mills was like reasonable. You know?
Davis Mills,
better than you would have thought.
He had his ups and he had some really low lows, and he had some pretty good highs. Like
for a guy that's barely played in college and we didn't think would ever start a game.
No,
for a while.
No, I think there's a possibility that he could develop into a guy. I mean, Khalil Herbert looks good. Yeah. I still believe in the talent of Terrace Marshall, although he hasn't gotten an opportunity, so I'm holding on that. Kenneth Gainwell's had some moments. Chuba
was okay.
Chuba was okay. I'm fine with Chuba.
And Nico, we got to see more from Nico. He's
Amon-Ra St. Brown in the same. Amon-Ra and Nico, I think similarly, where like I feel like they could be guys. They've shown at least a little bit.
I mean,
that might be it.
Do we want to talk about like Josh Palmer at this point? Like we're getting to the dregs. I think. But good class. But I mean,
no, I think we named the last two people you need to probably name. I guess.
Anyways, overall, a really strong class, particularly at the top. Like it's not out of the like we said like. The fact that in this class, you have 3 players and Jamar Chase, Najee Harris, and Kyle Pitts, who could all be argued as top 3 dynasty players at their position, is crazy. That's really, really special. And not to mention like Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields, who we think could get there. And Devante Smith and Javonte Williams, who we also think could get there. Like if fast forward 4 years from now, 3 years from now, even I won't even give it that long. If you were to tell me that Jamar Chase, Devante Smith were both top 5 options at wide receiver, Najee Harris and Javonte Williams were top 5 options at running back, and Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields were top 5 options at quarterback, plus Kyle Pitts as already my number 1 tight end, I wouldn't be shocked at all. That's and then like the depth beyond that. It's a really good rookie class.
I would be shocked because like I don't know if a class has ever been that good. That's why you just like to be top 5, but you know. They have the talent, that's for sure.
Well, I mean, let's go back to 2020 is pretty close. Jonathan Williams, DeAndre Swift, Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, that one's. But those guys,
Justin Herbert. Joe Burrow to a lesser extent is a little outside of that, and there's no tight end from that class.
It's hard to get the tight end.
The tight end's not there. I mean, Kyle Pitts is special, but even if you look at 2020 and 2021, like as a combination, were ridiculous, and that's not even counting like the rest of the 2020 running back class, who is there's other people that are kind of a flirt.
Like, if you
in
go
that
into your
top
next
echelon.
startup and you come out with mostly 2020 and 2021 players,
Oh yeah,
like,
no, you're doing good.
probably,
You're doing well.
probably doing pretty good. But
Unless you pick
I also
CEH.
thought, looking at another point about Elijah Mitchell, to dip back into that, I feel like I'm not as scared of him because I feel like all those guys like wow, I just lost his name.
Raheem Mostert.
Raheem Mostert. I was going to say
He's
Ramondre
not
Stevenson. I don't know why.
Yeah.
But some of those other guys, I feel like it was always health that took them out. Like, I still think that there wasn't a long enough healthy track record from those guys for that team to really stick with any of them. Like, they just kept going down, whether it was a Tevin Coleman, Raheem Mostert, Matt Breida, like all these guys just kept on, and Jeff Wilson, all these guys, as soon as they'd show, they were out. And I know Mitchell was a little banged up too, but I feel like
he fractured his finger in the game.
I mean, that feels like a freak but like, I just feel like
now
if
it came out today. He might not miss a game, but just to put that out there, he had to have like a minor surgery on his hand today.
Yeah, just tape it up.
But he did carry the ball like 30. He carried the ball like 30 times last night. So
They would just stop throwing the ball in the fourth quarter.
But yeah, I guess my thought is that it's like, if you could say relatively healthy, I don't see why he.
Oh no, I agree.
Well, I mean, like, let's say we get to like week 7 next year and Elijah Mitchell's still getting this workload and is still the guy in San Francisco. Like, how high are you putting him up? Let's get outside of these ranks. Like, how high are you putting him in your running back ranks in Dynasty?
Fast forwarding to next year.
Yeah, like let's say we're getting like towards the middle of next season and he's still getting the workload that he's getting now.
Let's look back a couple weeks ago when we did our ranks. I think I was sitting with Mitchell around running back 23, which kind of, as you did, kind of keeps him still in there with the ETNs and Carters in his class, but somewhere around the value of like Harris, Sanders.
Yeah, so he was
some of those guys. So like,
he
kind
was
of
our
falling in that low end
24.
RB2. If he's suddenly
let's play a name game because I've got this up right now. Elijah Mitchell was our consensus running back 24. Let's fast forward, say everything continues as is until the middle of next year. Would you take him over Cam Akers?
No. I would still shoot for Cam Akers.
Well, that's a tough thing because if we fast forward to that point, then hopefully Cam Akers is back and performing again. I
what
think
about
I'm going to go with Akers?
Clyde Edwards-Helaire?
I'd take him over Helaire. Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
Josh Jacobs.
Jacobs, yeah. I'd take him over Josh Jacobs. I don't think Josh Jacobs has really reclaimed value since Gruden left the way I would have hoped. So he's good. He's fine, but it's still sort of low ceiling.
Last one, Kareem Hunt.
Yeah. I would take him just over.
Yes, but
He's
that
right
one's
next
probably
to
the
him,
closest.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he would have to
I mean,
continue. Like, if you see because like contract-wise, I think it works out pretty well because I don't believe Wilson or Mostert are signed beyond this year.
No, nor Hasty, I believe, as well. But
so, I mean, it opens up where, like, if it continues and he is at least the guy or kind of the guy there, that's, I don't know, we'll see. He can rise up the ranks a little bit more. I think I was in a similar spot in the 20s, low 20s, so could probably bump up into the teens.
Yeah.
If he's the guy there, because Mostert probably flirted with those when you think about it, and Mitchell's showing he can hold up a little bit so far.
Yeah. Yeah, he's looked good with the balance. Like I said, like yards after contact, he's been terrific on that. So it's just a matter of I just want to see the role continue more. I don't know why it scares me so much.
Well, with 6 rounders, you want to
but
see it for a while. So you just and how volatile they've been with running backs. So you just kind of
how do you unsee all those things? Like, you can't discount it because it's like those are all very real things that have happened. It's like, again, low draft capital, lack of consistency of having a main guy there, and then just maybe a little bit of the injury concern
on Seattle. They've stuck with like Aaron Jones was the 5th rounder in Green Bay, so it's like teams do stick with guys in later rounds when they find something. So
That's true. That is true. And
Chris Carson also not having the best health track record either, and they stuck with him in Seattle. That's the strange thing. Like he's cutting every
passed over Mike Davis for him. They passed over Thomas Rawls for him. Rashad Penny. Other people. Travis
Alex
Homer.
Collins.
Twice. I think that's a good place to wrap it up. This is a good class. This is a good rookie class.
I like it.
I was pleasantly surprised.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say I'm happy with it.
A lot of guys who were going to be major players for a stretch run for a lot of championships teams, which is not always the case for rookies. But that's a good place to wrap it up for this episode of the Brothers of Dynasty. Thanks as always to my two brothers, Jay and Andrew. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Josh. And you can find me at JAYC_DFF on Twitter. So check me out there. And last week, Josh joined the other show I do, Fantasy Cheat Sheet, which was Friday nights at 8:30. I'm going to be off for a couple weeks. We'll probably be back the first week of December. We got Thanksgiving, got some other stuff going on. But yeah, Josh filled in last week, so that was fun on that show. You can find that on Fridays, 8:30 on the Going for Two Live network.
And thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Josh. And you can find me at Drewsy_music. That's on Instagram and Twitter. And also go to ghostinthesnow.com to find the music, like the music at the top of this podcast for my band, Ghost in the Snow. That website will bring you to the Facebook, Instagram, socials, and also to the music streaming sites like Spotify, Apple Music, Bandcamp, all of them. Check it out.
All right, and you can follow me on Twitter at DFFJChris, and remember to follow at Bros of Dynasty on Twitter. Subscribe to our Facebook page, Brothers of Dynasty, and if you're watching on YouTube right now, smash that subscribe button. Subscribe to our YouTube page so you don't miss our show every Tuesday night. We'll be here with you through the rest of the season, and then into the Dynasty rookie season. We'll be breaking down tape, which I can't wait for in this class. So we'll stay tuned.
Let's get this stupid
Give me some
season
Kenneth
over
Walker,
with.
baby. Yeah, this fucking
as soon as this
season.
this dumb NFL season over, so we can do rookie analysis.
The season's overrated, honestly.
No.
Just kidding.
I do love off season and Dynasty. It's the fun of Dynasty. It is a 24/7 365 game. We
love the draft, not the season.
It's 24 weeks a year, 7 hours a day.
That's 24 hours a week, 7 months a year, 365 minutes a weekend. Anyways, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for listening, and have a good night. Don't forget to set your lineups, everybody.